is News 24. I'm Erin Bates. We're outside the North Gauteng High Court in Karabo. What's going to happen today, the second day of sentencing in the Oscar Pistorius murder sentencing?
Today we want to see Advocate Gerinel tearing apart whatever witness the Oscar Pistorius defense team is going to put forward. And we heard that today they're going to put in on the stand someone who's going to talk about Oscar's charitable state, basically. And from there, the state is apparently going to call Oscar's father to give a character reference of Oscar.
So yesterday we had Jonathan Schultz. He's a doctor, psychologist, and he gave a kind of depiction of who he thinks Oscar is, the kind of man he thinks Oscar is. And I was in court yesterday afternoon, and there was a lot of emphasis on this question of whether Oscar is a violent personality, whether that's his temperament, or whether under certain stresses he's likely to turn to violence. So it's going to be interesting to see what his father has to say. What do we know about his relationship with his father?
So I think him and his father have got an estranged relationship, and I think that's why maybe Gerinel has called him to take the witness stand. And if you remember yesterday, Geri spoke about Oscar's violent behavior even in prison, saying he was shouting at prison officials in one instance. So I think that's going to play a major factor in determining if Oscar is going to get a chance to walk or not.
And it really hinges on that question of his personality and how explosive his personality is. When that question of the prison case came up, the fact that he really struggled to adjust to prison at first, that first month that he was incarcerated, you know, the psychologist Schultz said there's some degree of anger that's understandable. He's adjusting to very different living conditions, he's under a lot of strain, he was under a lot of scrutiny, and now he's in a position where, you know, he has to change his whole way of life. So Schultz trying to argue there that Oscar had a kind of understandable level of anger and frustration, and if he banged on a table against a state nurse, it was because he was under particular stresses. Now, of course, Gerinel, as you say, ripped into that and tried to use it to argue that he has a sort of progressively angry personality. So, you know, we've just got to kind of sit it out and see what happens.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be tough for Oscar because you can imagine being in court. It's very intimidating, and hearing his people talking about his life like this, they're basically deciding his fate. And I find it very weird that he's not even going to be able to take the stand to give his side of the story as to, is he an angry person? Why is he showing these levels of anger when he's in kind of a certain situation? So it's going to be hard for him.
Yeah, and that decision not to testify, that he's not in a condition, he's not in a state of mind at the moment where he can and is able to testify. If I think back to Oscar testifying during the trial, I remember a very kind of soft-spoken, kind of self-effacing person, and who we saw yesterday in court was someone very flushed, very red in the face, very kind of teary-eyed. I spoke to a couple of supporters for an international group for Oscar Pistorius yesterday after court ended, and one of them said to me she went up to Oscar after the break at lunch. I actually saw that happen, and these women are kind of in solidarity with him. They're kind of you know, supporters for him. And she said, I went up to him and I looked him in the eyes and he said, "Akas jammer, Tani, I'm sorry, Tani." And she said, "Disturbai, you know, it's over now." And these women, almost like mothers, you know, for a boy who lost his mother quite young, standing around him and giving him support. But that doesn't change the fact that Reva Steenkamp was shot through a locked door in a bathroom, you know, in 2013. So stay with News 24 and we'll keep you updated throughout the day. Thank you, Karabo.
It's a pleasure.